Hey folks, welcome back. Today we're going to start the master of this track we've been working on. A little caveat at first here, I would advise not doing your own mastering, but in case you are going to do your own mastering, this is a process that I would use, and there's no right or wrong way to do mastering, by the way, as long as the finished product comes out the way you want it and is accessible on all the platforms that you want it to be on. So with that in mind, let me get through one more thing before we start. Why am I doing this in a separate project? And the answer to that is this is a totally different sort of mindset than mixing. And that's a lot of the reason why I don't really recommend doing your own mastering. Try to think of it as a different thing, right? It's hard to be subjective to something you've been working on for a long time. And if you do your own mastering, when you start a project, do it in a new environment and think of it as someone else's work, sending it to you, if that makes sense. And with that in mind, let's get started here. So all I have up is the track that was bounced out before, and I have already checked a little bit of the levels. I brought them up a little bit using a VU meter. I will show you how I did that. What I've done here is I've tried to find sort of one of the louder sections of the track and see if it averages around 0 at the negative 18 dB headroom area. And that looks pretty good to me. It doesn't look like it's going to go any farther. There's a little bit of a louder section over here, but that's more of a peak. And so that was 4.5 dB. I raised this mix so that I know the exact level that it's going to hit the other plugins, and we're good to go. So when you do a mastering project like this, it's best to sort of listen through the whole thing first and make a few notes. And I have done that already. What I have noted is that I probably should go back and fix a few things in the mix, but I'm going to go steady forward with this project as if someone had sent it to me. It's not terrible stuff that I'm going to fix, but it is pretty common. Some of it is in the low and low mids area. If I start at the beginning here,
I dreamed that you were blind and I went walking.
if you listen to her guitar part where she's hitting her thumb on the A string quite a bit, it is a little bit too, it's a little bit too there, you know, it's in my face a little bit, and it's a little bit over the whole mix. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the Pro-Q3 on. There is no need, by the way, in my opinion, to use linear phase at this point in the master. I know people will tell you to use that, but I always use natural phase. It doesn't really matter. I am going to take this area somewhere around in here. See this wide band area on the EQ here? That's really a problem area a lot of times. I'm going to pull that down a tiny bit just to get started.
I dreamed that you were blind and I went walking.
Here's off.
Looking for the light, but then I lost it.
I'm going to wait till she gets back around.
Trying to bring the right thing home to you. I see now that nothing is a waste. And
when she really gets going right in here, that's helpful to pull that down a little bit. Now, one thing I like to do early on in a situation like this, in Americana music, it sounds good to put this through like a tube emulation of some sort, and there are tons of them available. I know there's like one that I got over the holidays from Plugin Alliance. That is called the Black Box Analog Design H2. I don't know. HG2. Yeah, okay, cool. Let's see what happens here. I'm going to put this through some tubes and see if I can make this a little bit more harmonically rich.
And I see now that nothing myself a castle just to climb down and rifle through the fragments of my youth. And I've got...
Nope, don't like that, so we're getting rid of that. Probably something with a large tone stack or tube assortment. Maybe the Fairchild would be good. Even if I'm not doing any compression, let's try that right fast. I'm going to lower the threshold all the way down so I don't do any, it will not grab any peaks, basically, hopefully.
And I see now that nothing is a waste until it runs.
Perfect. I can already tell. It's making the higher mids more present and the lower register more present.
And I see now, and I see now, and I see now.
Right, and it's getting rid of actually some of that sort of high nastiness that's happening in the real upper end stuff. Perfect. I'm gonna leave that. Now to take care of some of that finger stuff happening.
I built myself a castle just to climb down.
I'm trying to imagine that this mix is coming through a stereo, maybe a car stereo, a nice one, you know, or a nice home stereo.
I built myself a castle just to climb down. And I've got everything I've ever felt lined up in pretty little bottles.
Okay, so I am going to take care of a few things here, and I'm going to use the Oxford Dynamic EQ for this. This EQ is obviously a dynamic EQ, and what that means is that whenever I tell the plugin to, you know, bring something down like this, if I pull it way down here, until a signal reaches a certain threshold, it won't touch, you know, the attenuation of that frequency. And so let's go back to about normal here.
I've got everything I've ever felt lined up in pretty little bottles, one way in and one way out. My love, it's gonna be a while till I know who I am again after you.
Okay, I'm going to turn that off and then back on. What I'm hearing, by the way, is that when they hit their A strings, both Powell and Hayley, that it's going to kind of bring that frequency down at the most 2 dB.
I've got everything I've ever felt lined up in pretty little bottles, one way in and one way out. My love, it's gonna be a while till I know who I am again after you.
That's making everything a little bit more even when she's hitting the strings a little harder. It's not, you know, poking right out at your face, and it's not taking away from her vocals, which is the main thing. Good. Next up, I'm going to put another Sonnox plugin on here called the Inflater. Now, if you want to go through these plugins, like just go through their manuals and see what they do, it's pretty intense. I'm only going to use a little bit of this effect, maybe, if I like it. And I'm going to pull this curve down. If you want to know what that does, you can actually read this. The curve fader modifies the processing characteristics and sonic effects of the inflater. Settings between 0 and plus 50 increase fatness. That's actually not really what I want to do. It's kind of the opposite of that, what I'm looking to do. The settings between 0 and negative 50 produce the most subtle changes in the sound. You'll kind of hear what I'm talking about. It makes it sort of warmer sounding as I pull this down a little bit. First of all, I will turn it off and then pull it in.
I've got everything I've ever felt lined up in pretty little bottles, one way in and one way out. My love, it's gonna be a while till I know who I am again.
Let's head back to the beginning and hear that with it on and off.
I dreamed that you were blind and I went walking. I dreamed that you were blind and I went walking, looking for the light, but then I lost it.
Changes a little bit of the texture of her voice a little bit and brings up some of the lower level dynamics is the word I'm looking for. It's sort of a compression. It's not really, it's an inflator. That's what it does. It's hard to explain. Now, after this, I am going to put some sort of compression on here, but I think I'm going to use a gentle compression using the ATR machine. And I've already used this in the mix, but I'm going to hit it again, I think. Let's try this with it off first.
I dreamed that you were blind and I went walking. I dreamed that you were blind and I went walking, looking for the light, but then I lost it. Trying to bring the right thing home.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let me hit the louder section and see what happens.
Who I am again. Oh, and nothing much has changed except some blinding revelations. I am holding out my hands. A fickle heart requires patience. I know. I'm on my who I am again. Oh, and nothing much has changed except some blinding revelations. I am.
Yeah, okay, so we've got some compression happening and we've got a kind of a widening effect a little bit with the tape, and that is awesome. This thing is like a miracle. It's pretty deep if you get heavy into it. I'm gonna leave that on for now. One more thing I think I want to put on here is the BX Digital V3, yes, this one. This is a great plugin. This can solve all kinds of issues. I don't think I need to solve many, or if any, right now. There may be a few residual low-end kind of things happening that I need to take care of, but one of the great things about this plugin is the stereo width function here, and let's head back to about middle where the verse 2 happens.
Floating on a cloud above the last year, and I can see the moon now as the fog clears. The stars were burning, we just looked away.
Okay, yeah, so what I'm doing right here, the stereo width, I'm clicking on the knob here with my mouse, and I'm dragging it up a tiny bit until I hear maybe too much of it, or maybe what I think is enough, and then I let go, and then I come back a little bit just to keep things safe. I ended up somewhere around 112, 113, and when I turn it off and back on, it seems like a pleasant addition to me. So let's check that out again. Here's off.
Floating on a cloud above the last year.
Okay, I am okay with everything I've done so far, I think. So let's talk about some dynamics. There are a lot of dynamics in this song. There's super quiet areas, there's louder parts, and we kind of need to take care of that if someone's going to stream this or, send it to their friend on their phone or something like that. So one of the ways to do that is to add a parallel channel, just a bus, and I'm going to send this bus, make sure it's sending to the main out. Yep. On this bus, I'm going to use a compressor. It doesn't really matter which one you use. although I'm so used to using this one that I'm going to use this. I have a parallel preset that I always use. And this preset is one that I've just always, started with. I have it on the limit section. I have the sidechain in at 50. It's a pretty quick release for this compressor and a medium attack. Now I'm going to send the entire signal of that processed track we just had into that compressor. I'm going to pull the fader all the way down, and I'm going to ignore it for now. I'm going to come back to it in a minute. I'm going to create a new bus called the mix bus. I know this is confusing for some folks, but everything is now going to be sent to this mix bus, which is going to be sent to the main. The reason I'm doing that is so that I can pull down the mix bus level here and not kill ourselves with what's going to happen in a minute. So let's find a limiter and put it on the mix bus. I'm going to use the Pro-L2 from Fabfilter, just one that I'm super familiar with. I'm going to turn the oversampling on to about 8. The output, I'm going to put at -1, which is pretty safe for anything that's going to be streaming, or if you're sending to your friend as an MP3, etc., stuff like that. This is a pretty safe place to put this. Especially with the true peak limiting coming on. And there's a whole conversation we can have about why this would be good or bad. But for now, we're just going to leave that on. I'm going to leave it on the default modern style, and I'm probably not going to mess with these. We'll find out here in a minute. Over here on the right, if I watch this scale over here, this will give me a pretty good idea of levels. But I am going to put a meter over here. Let me head down here to my waves plugins. The WLM-Plus is a great plugin to have. It gives you all sorts of information. You can even fill it in here. I'm going to change a few things so that it doesn't start yelling at me. The short-term max, I'm just going to crank that all the way up. Short-term min, off. True peak, I'm going to move up to 1.0. That will tell me if I go over. That will tell me, it will give me an error. My target, I might say 11.8. Sure. We'll get to that in a minute. I'm just going to put it there right now. It doesn't really matter at this point, as long as it sounds good. Okay. We can get into a whole conversation about, Spotify and all that stuff too. But here we go. I'm going to leave that there while I push gain into the limiter, just to see where we are here.
Floating on a cloud above the last year, and I can see the moon now as the fall clears.
Pull this oversampling back on.
So I wake here, floating on a cloud above the last year.
Okay, good. So far, everything seems safe there. I didn't hear any problems so far. I'm going to put a BAX EQ on before the limiter. This is a really great, utilitarian plugin where I'm just going to use it to cut some lows, but I'm going to listen to what's happening to the full signal while I do it.
So I wake here, floating on a cloud above the last year, and I can see the moon now as the fall clears. The stars were burning, we just looked away. And I'm grieving 100 little lives for every season. You have parts of me that I don't.
Right, so I'm cutting around 24 hertz on the bottom, I know we can't really hear that, but it's sort of a feel that I'm getting from it. Similar with the top, I'm cutting around 28 kilohertz, and I know we can't hear that, but I'm going by a feel. Whereas if I went down to 18, it seemed to not be as open sounding, if that's the word. Pull it back to 28, and I'm good. Okay, good. I'm going to pull this back down all the way. And the reason why is because now I'm going to pull in the parallel bus feeding the mix bus. And I'm just going to try to find a sweet spot for the dynamics. Before I do that, I'm going to go over here to a loud section and take a look at what I'm doing on gain reduction here.
And I've got everything I've ever felt lined up in pretty little bottles, one way in and one way out. My love, it's gonna be a while till I know who I am again after you. I dreamed that you were blind and I went walking, looking for the light, but then I lost it, trying to bring the right thing home to you. Until it runs out, I built myself a castle just to climb down.
Okay, heading back for a second, what I've done, pulled up about a half a dB on the 7.1 kilohertz shelf. I went backwards a little bit to the digital EQ, pulled down around the 133 hertz. You could probably hear that when I click on the knob, it solos that, and there was still a bit of a problem happening there.
I dreamed that you were blind and I went walking, looking for the light, but then I lost it to you. And I see now that nothing is a waste until it runs out. I built myself a castle just to climb down, rifle through the fragments of my youth.
Okay, I'm going to put in another metering plugin and kind of watch what's happening over the whole mix. Let's use the decibel meter. I have a preset that I use on here called mastering. Now this mastering meter, I have enough room here on this screen, gives me an integrated LUFS value, gives me a dynamic value over here. I have a spectrogram, I have mid side, left and right, and a correlation meter.
I dreamed dreamed that you were blind and I went walking, looking for the light, but then I lost it, trying to bring the right thing home to you.
Okay, I'm gonna head back to the end here where things get louder and just kind of make sure everything's okay.
I've got everything I've ever felt lined up in pretty little bottles, one way in and one way out. My love, it's gonna be a while till I know who I am again. Oh, and nothing much has changed except some blinding revelations I am holding out.
Okay, yeah, I'm backing off this limiter a little bit now because things are getting kind of squashed.
And one way out, my love, it's gonna be a while till I know who I am again. Oh, and nothing much has changed except some blinding revelations I am holding out. My hands, a fickle heart requires patience.
Okay, now at this point, I'm pretty okay with this mix. So what I'm gonna do, I would now normally actually just play through the whole thing and listen several times. But I'm going to kind of cut the beginning of this, pull it back to the beginning, see if that's enough room to make an entrance here. Okay, let's head back here and I'm going to put a fade in right here. I'm going to pull this curve down a good bit.
I dreamed that you were blind and I looking for the light, but then I lost it, trying to bring the right thing home to you.
What I'm doing here, by the way, I'm just swapping these two faders. They're doing basically the same thing. I put the mix bus at 0, and so I can attenuate what we're listening to with the main now. And I'm just making sure that nothing wonky has happened in the chain of events here.
And after you,
Now this is pretty loud. This would be what I would consider like CD territory right now. And so it seems pretty safe. So I could back this off a little bit, maybe a half dB.
blinding revelations,
Let me reset this and see what happens.
blinding revelations I am holding.
Grab the end of this and we will cut maybe a little bit, at least fade a little bit. Oh, there's a big jump right there at the end. Hang on. Well, not much you can do about that, except get rid of that fade. And sort of smooth that out a little bit after the last strum. Yeah, okay. Well, that would be a good place to end this. One more thing I want to talk about before we would send this off. One thing that I would suggest doing is getting a type of toolbox, like a codec toolbox plugin. This is a tiny little thing here that Sonnox makes. And what this does is this allows you to listen to what the final product would sound like through a different codec. So in other words, if I come down here to iTunes, then I can listen to, you know, what the codec is doing or the input is doing, whichever is highlighted. So if I'm listening to the input here, let me pull this down so we don't hurt ourselves. turn over to the codec and listen to that.
I've got everything I've ever felt lined up in pretty little bottles, one way in.
Yeah, it's fine right there, and that's a pretty loud part. If I went over here to MP3 and I kind of go down to maybe 128 bit rate, and we can listen to what's going on there, it will actually tell me where the errors are going to be. It will tell me if there's any overs.
I've got everything I've ever felt lined up in pretty little bottles, one way in and one way out. My love is.
Now I hear a couple things there in the high end that are not cool, but at the same time, I would just tell somebody to not listen to the song at 128 kilobytes per second. You know, bring them up a little bit, you know, 256, even 192 on an MP3. I'm not sure it would have nearly the problems that were coming in through right there.
I've got everything I've ever felt lined up in pretty little bottles, one.
Yeah, I don't hear any problems, even with the string popping that was coming through a minute ago with the lower bit rate. Nope, I didn't hear it there. So that's a good way to reference what is going to happen, you know, down the line on a master. Make sure you turn that off before you send it off. I always turn off the metering as well. Now, make sure before you do any bouncing, come over here to the main, bring it up to 0. Normally I would have that on 0, and I have a monitor controller where I'm listening at low volumes and louder volumes. But in the case of this video, we can't really do that. So now you would go up here to export, mix down, do your thing, send it off in at least 16-bit wave to get, you know, a response from the artist. And that's it. If you have any questions, comments, leave them down below and I'll get right back to you. If this helped in any way, please leave a like and please hit subscribe. More videos are coming very soon. Thanks.